Jason Statham walks onto the Real Time with Bill Maher set, ready to plug his new movie, looking tough as nails in a sharp suit. The crowd cheers, but Bill Maher sits there with a nasty smirk, like he's about to pounce. This isn't a friendly talk, it's a trap, and Maher's loving it. "Hey, Jason, good to see you. So, how's it feel to make those brain-dead action movies nobody takes seriously?" Maher says, his tone sharp and mean. The audience laughs a little, but it's awkward. They know Maher's starting a fight, and it's about to get ugly. Statham sits down, cool as ice, staring Maher down without a word. His eyes don't waver, he's not scared, he's waiting. Maher thinks he's got him cornered, leaning in with that smug grin, acting like he's the king of the room. But Statham's not playing along. He's a brick wall, letting Maher yap while the tension builds fast. The crowd picks up on it. They stop giggling and start whispering. Something big's coming. Maher's too busy mocking to notice, tossing out jabs like he's untouchable. Statham just watches, steady, like he's got a knockout punch ready to drop. This isn't your average interview anymore. It's a showdown, and the air's electric. The audience leans forward, hooked, knowing Statham's not the guy who's gonna crack. Maher's digging his own grave, and Statham's about to bury him. One wrong move, and this stage is his. The crowd's buzzing now. They're not here for a roast, they're here for a war. And it's clear who's walking away the winner. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with cocky host, and comment where you're watching from today. The Real Time with Bill Maher studio hits you like a punch. Hot lights blasting down, a slick dark wood desk parked center stage, red curtains framing it like a boxing ring. The live crowd's alive, buzzing loud, hands clapping, feet stomping, filling the air with raw energy. Cameras swoop in fast, lenses glinting, catching every angle of this packed house. Jason Statham walks out, black suit tight on his broad shoulders, moving smooth but heavy, like a tank rolling into battle. He drops into the guest chair, legs crossed, hands flat on his knees, face hard as concrete. He's not here to mess around. His eyes sweep the set, landing sharp on Bill Maher behind that desk. Maher lounges back, tie loose, smirking like he owns the planet. This guy's a pro at ripping people apart. His show's a battlefield, and he's the king swinging the axe. Tonight, he's locked on Statham, ready to carve him up. The audience knows his deal. He's got a big mouth and loves using it. They start loud, hollering for the action star, but the vibe flips quick. Maher's grin turns nasty, teeth showing, like a dog about to bite. He shuffles his note cards, playing it cool, but the crowd catches the shift. Their cheers fade to low whispers, heads tilting, eyes narrowing. They see it now. Maher's not asking questions, he's loading a gun. Statham doesn't move. He sits there, still as a statue, chest steady, watching Maher like a hawk tracking a rabbit. The host thinks he's got this in the bag, chuckling to himself, tossing his pen on the desk with a clink. He's cocky, too cocky, acting like Statham's already toast. The air gets thick, heavy, like right before a storm hits. Maher leans forward, elbows planted, and fires off his first shot. "So, Jason, you still kicking fake props for a living, or did Hollywood run out of real jobs?" His voice cuts hard, dripping with sass, loud enough to bounce off the back wall. The crowd gasps, some laugh, but it's tense. Nobody's relaxing now. That jab lands, and the room locks up tight. Maher's loving it, rocking back in his chair, arms crossed, thinking he's the smartest guy here. He's got that look, like he's about to school Statham and send him packing. But Statham's not fazed. He tilts his head just a bit, jaw set, letting Maher's words hang in the air. He doesn't flinch, doesn't blink, just stares, a brick wall with a pulse. The audience feels it deep. They're not watching a guest squirm. They're watching a fuse burn down. Maher keeps going, tossing out little digs, smirking wider, blind to the danger sitting across from him. The set's a powder keg now. Every camera zoomed in, red lights blinking, catching Maher's smug face and Statham's cold glare. The crowd's on edge, shifting in their seats, hands gripping armrests. They know Maher's a bulldog, but Statham's something else, a guy who's taken down bigger threats than this loudmouth. Maher doesn't see it yet, too busy strutting in his own head, acting like he's untouchable. He taps the desk, leans closer, and doubles down. What's it like, Jason, being the guy who grunts for a paycheck? The line stings, sharp and fast, but Statham stays cool, leaning back slow, like a trap snapping shut soon. This isn't a talk show anymore. It's a street fight waiting to blow. The crowd's hooked, hearts racing, eyes darting between the two. Maher's playing king, tossing barbs like grenades, thinking he's winning. Statham's quiet burns louder than any comeback, a storm building behind those eyes. The audience can't look away. They're glued, knowing this is about to explode. Maher's too full of himself to back off, and Statham's too smart to jump yet. The stage is set, the clock's ticking, and nobody's breathing easy. The real-time studio's a live wire now, Maher riding high, thinking he's got Statham pinned. He slams his palm on the desk, grinning wide, and snaps with a sneer. Action stars went extinct, Jason. You still clawing at scraps from the 90s? The jab's a gut shot, fast and mean, aimed to knock Statham off his game. The crowd snickers quick, then freezes, air turning heavy as Maher's words sink in. Heads tilt, eyes widen. They're waiting for Statham to buckle. But he doesn't. He sits locked in place, chest still, eyes drilling through Maher like a laser. The host shifts in his seat, thrown off by the quiet, but he hides it with a chuckle, acting like he's still on top. Statham's not moving, not blinking, just letting Maher stew in his own noise. The crowd's locked in, barely breathing, watching this slow burn ignite. Maher senses the pause, and instead of backing off, he doubles down, smelling blood he hasn't drawn yet. He leans over the desk, voice loud and biting. Come on, man, you're pushing 60, grunting in dumb tough guy flicks for a bunch of morons who can't spell plot. Ever think about retiring? The attack's personal now, a barrage slamming Statham's age, his career, his fans, each word a dagger meant to cut deep. The audience gasps, hands flying to mouths, some muttering, "Oh, damn!" Maher smirks harder, thinking he's landed a knockout, his shoulders squared like he's the champ. But Statham's face doesn't crack. He tilts his head slow, just an inch, and the room feels it, a shift, like the ground moving under Maher's feet. The host keeps talking, tossing more jabs, but Statham's done waiting. He leans forward, elbows on his thighs, voice low and hard as gravel. Least I don't yap for applause, Bill. You're a clown with a mic. Where's your Oscar? The words hit like a brick through glass, sharp and sudden, slicing right through Maher's ego. The crowd chokes, stunned, air rushing out of them in a collective whoa. Maher's grin twitches, eyes blinking fast. He didn't see that coming. Maher tries to laugh it off, tossing his head back, but it's forced, shaky. Oh, touché, Jason, real clever, he says, voice pitching up, scrambling to hold his ground. The audience isn't buying it. They're shifting, leaning toward Statham, whispers buzzing like static. Statham doesn't let up. He sits back, arms crossed, staring Maher down with a look that says, "Keep going, I dare you." The host fumbles his notes, fingers tapping the desk, desperate to claw back control. He smirks again, weaker this time, and fires another shot. Right, well, at least I don't need explosions to look good. Your movies are just noise, man. It's a swing, but it's wild, missing the mark. Statham's eyes narrow, a spark flashing in them. He leans in again, voice steady, cutting deeper. Noise pays, Bill. What's your excuse, talking over people to feel smart? The crowd erupts, hoots and hollers bouncing off the walls, hands clapping hard. Maher's face tightens, jaw clenching. He's losing them, and he knows it. He tries to interrupt. Hey, I've got... But Statham rolls right over him, calm but brutal. You're a big shot, till someone talks back, huh? Funny how that works. The audience roars louder, some jumping up, feeding off Statham's heat. Maher's sinking fast, sweat beading on his forehead, his smug shield cracking wide open. The stage is a war zone now, and Statham's running it. Maher's attacks keep coming, but they're sloppy, frantic, like a guy swinging at shadows. You're a one-trick pony, Jason, same old crap every time. He spits, voice cracking at the edges. Statham doesn't flinch, just smirks, a small, deadly curve, and hits back clean. Better one trick that works than a whole circus that flops. How's your ratings lately? The crowd loses it, cheers exploding, fists pumping. They're all in for Statham now, hooked on every word. Maher's hands shake, his pen dropping with a clatter, and the cameras catch it all, zooming in on his rattled face. This isn't a debate anymore, it's a demolition, and Statham's got the hammer. Maher's crumbling fast now, his smug game falling apart on real time. His voice cracks, high and thin, thrown off by Statham sitting there like a stone wall, not budging an inch. The host's hands twitch, fumbling his cards, sweat shining on his brow under those blazing lights. He's been swinging hard, but Statham's a tank. Every jab bounces off, and Maher's starting to feel it. The crowd's electric, buzzing louder, sensing the tide turning. Statham's not just surviving. He's about to take over. Maher's eyes dart, panicked, but he's too deep to back out now. Statham smells the weakness and pounces. He leans forward, elbows planted, voice low and rough. "You talk big, Bill, but it's all hot air. Your head's so puffed up, I'm surprised you don't float off that chair." The line's a sledgehammer, smashing Maher's ego into bits. The audience hoots, heads whipping back, loving every second. Maher's cheap punches, those snide little digs about age and movies, get flipped right back in his face. Statham keeps going, steady and brutal. "You think you're clever, huh?" Hiding behind a desk, tossing insults like a kid with a slingshot. The crowd's roaring now, feeding off Statham's fire, every word landing like a punch. Maher scrambles, grasping at straws. He swings back, voice shaky. "Oh, please, Jason, I don't need fake fights to matter. You're just a stunt guy with lines." It's a wild jab, desperate and weak, his smirk barely holding. The audience groans, seeing through it, Maher's flopping hard. Statham doesn't even blink. He sits up straight, owning the stage, and smashes Maher's comeback flat. "Stunts take guts, Bill. You're a mouthpiece who'd run from a paper cut." The crowd explodes, clapping wild, some jumping up, yelling, "Get him, Jason!" Maher's jaw drops, his hands freeze mid-air, he's got nothing left to throw. Statham's in full control now, steering this wreck like a boss. He locks eyes with Maher, tearing into him clean. "You built your show on tearing guys down. Where's that leave you when the laughs stop?" It's a gut punch, raw and real, stripping Maher bare. The host tries to cut in, stammering, "I've got a career, but Statham's not done." "A career? You're a parrot squawking for claps. My dog's got more spine." The audience loses it, cheers booming, feet stomping, fully on Statham's side. Maher's sinking, shoulders slumping, his big shot act shredded on live TV. The room's a volcano, heat rising, and Statham's the one erupting. Maher's flailing, tossing out one last weak shot. "At least I don't need a script to sound tough," he snaps, but it's a whisper against Statham's roar. The action star leans in close, voice ice cold, slicing deep. "Tough's what I do, Bill. You play smart, till someone hits back, then what?" The crowd screaming now, hands waving, hooked on every word, knowing Maher's done. Statham's not just winning, he's rewriting the fight, turning Maher's own game against him. Then comes the hammer drop. Statham stares him down, unblinking, and lets it rip. "What's your excuse, Bill? You've got no scars, no wins, just a loud mouth and a chair. What's that worth?" The question hangs, heavy as lead, and the room goes dead. Maher's eyes widen, lips parting, but no sound comes out. The crowd stunned, silent for a beat, then erupts again, whistles, shouts, pure chaos. Maher's a ghost, pale and small, his desk a cage he can't escape. Statham leans back, arms crossed, letting the silence bury him. This isn't a talk anymore, it's a knockout, and Maher's flat on the mat. Maher's on the ropes now, his real-time throne wobbling under Statham's glare. He's out of tricks, but he's not done swinging. He claws at Statham's past, voice raspy and wild, digging up dirt. "Let's talk turn it up, Jason. That flop still stinks. You're no legend, just a guy who stumbled into hits." The jab's a desperate lunge, spit flying as he yells, trying to drag Statham down with old ghosts. He mocks louder, "You're a fluke who got lucky, Hollywood's charity case." The crowd hisses, some boo, but Maher's too far gone, eyes bugging out, betting it all on this last cheap shot. Statham doesn't bite. He shrugs it off, cool as ice, turning scars into steel right there on the spot. He leans back, arms loose, and lets Maher's words crash and burn. The host's panting, waiting for a flinch that never comes. Statham's eyes glint, and he fires back, voice steady and deep. I've crushed louder clowns than you, Bill. Flops. I've had M. Still standing. You'd fold at the first punch. It's a haymaker, raw and real, flipping Maher's attack into dust. The crowd leaps up, roaring for Statham's blood, fists pumping, voices shaking the studio walls. They're not just watching, they're in it, hooked on every move. Maher's face falls, hands trembling, his big shot act melting live on air. He tries to cut in. Oh, come on, but Statham steamrolls him, not letting up. You yap about failure, 'cause you've never risked a damn thing. I've fought my way up. Where's your fight, huh? The words hit hard, personal, slicing through Maher's thin skin. The audience screams, "Yeah, Jason!" Chairs creaking as they jump, fully on Statham's side. Maher's sinking fast, his desk a sinking ship, and he's the captain with no lifeboat. The shift's brutal now, undeniable. Maher's voice shakes. I've got a show I don't need, but it's weak, a whimper against Statham's growl. A show? You're a vulture picking at scraps. I build what you can't break. Statham's chest puffs, every word a brick stacking Maher's tomb. The crowd's wild, clapping so loud the cameras shake, some yelling, "Finish him!" Maher's hands drop, limp, his pen rolling off the desk with a sad little clink. His eyes dart, lost, that smug grin gone, replaced by a tight-lipped grimace. He's not steering this anymore. Statham's got the wheel, and he's driving it straight over Maher's pride. Maher's crumbling, a mess under the lights, his last stand a total bust. He mutters, "You're just a—" but Statham cuts him cold. "Save it, Bill. I've outlasted bigger mouths than yours, guys who actually had something to say." The crowd's a storm now, howling, stomping, feeding off Statham's heat. Maher's shoulders slump, his tie crooked, sweat soaking his collar. He's a shell, exposed and small. The audience smells blood, leaning in, phones out, catching every second of this crash. Statham's not just winning, he's rewriting Maher's story, turning the host's own game into a trap he can't escape. This ain't a talk show no more, it's a slaughter, and Maher's the one bleeding. Statham sits tall, a king on a busted stage, while Maher's world falls apart. The crowd's all in, hearts racing, knowing they're seeing a legend flip the script. Maher's hands shake worse, his voice a ghost, and the cameras zoom tight on his wrecked face. Statham's calm, deadly, letting Maher drown in the mess he made. The shift's locked, Maher's done, and everyone knows it. Maher's a dead man walking now, his real-time stage a graveyard, and Statham's holding the shovel. He slams Maher's gig into the dirt, voice low and mean. "You rip folks apart for cheers, Bill. What's your prize when they're gone?" A desk and a sad little clap. The line's a throat punch, cold and final, stripping Maher bare. The crowd goes dead quiet, jaws dropping, hit by a freight train of truth. Maher locks up, mouth dry, nothing left to fire back. His hands freeze on the desk, knuckles white, eyes wide like a deer in headlights. Statham's not just winning, he's ending him, right here, right now. This ain't a chat anymore, it's a burial, and Statham's the gravedigger. Maher's whole career flashes in his panicked stare, every smug rant and cheap shot crumbling to ash. The audience holds its breath, phones up, catching this slaughter live. Statham kicks back in his chair, smirking just enough to twist the knife, watching Maher sink in his own hole. The host's face is a mess, sweat dripping, lips twitching, a king dethroned on his own turf. The cameras zoom tight, red lights blinking, framing his fall for the world to see. Statham's words echo, heavy, leaving no room for escape. Maher chokes out gibberish. But it's a wreck, no fight left. His voice cracks hard, a squeak against Statham's growl, and the crowd gasps, some laughing, some shouting, "It's over!" Statham doesn't move, doesn't need to, his work's done. Maher's a shell, hands flopping to his lap, tie hanging loose like a noose. The studio's thick with shock, every eye glued to this implosion. Statham's last line keeps burning, a torch on Mars' pride, and the host can't dodge it. He's got no quips, no snark, just a blank stare, a man who's lost everything in 10 seconds flat. The reckoning's brutal, total, and Statham owns it. The crowd still, then erupts, whistles piercing the air, feet stomping, a wave of noise crashing over Mars' ruin. He tries one last mumble, "You can't," but it dies fast, swallowed by the roar. Statham sits there, arms crossed, letting Mar drown in the mess he made. The host's a ghost now, pale, shrinking, his big mouth finally shut. The stage lights feel hotter, harsher, spotlighting a broken man who thought he'd win. Statham's the king, undisputed, and Mar's just the punchline nobody's laughing at anymore. Statham rips off his mic, wire snapping, and strides out like a champ, back straight, head high. The real-time stage is his battlefield, and he's leaving it smoking. The crowd explodes, screaming his name, jumping out of seats, hands smacking together so hard the walls shake. It's chaos, whistles cut the air, phones flash, every second of this blowout going viral. Mar slumps at his desk, a wreck on his own turf, eyes blank, tie dangling like a surrender flag. His big talk's dead, buried under Statham's boots, and the crowd's loving it, roaring louder with every step Statham takes. Cameras zoom tight on Mar's broken mug, sweat streaks, mouth slack, then the screen cuts black, sealing his doom with a thud. Statham's gone, no need for another word. Mar's toast, legacy torched in one night. The audience keeps howling, feet stomping, as the lights dim, but it's Statham's shadow that sticks. He's the king who didn't just win, he rewrote the game, leaving Mar a punchline nobody's laughing at.